Hey everybody, this is Dream, and today we got a nice little 7-game NBA slate for you. Before I get started, can you guys smash that like and subscribe button? It really helps the channel a lot. We have a pretty extensive injury report today. Before I get into that though, hopefully everybody did well over the weekend. We had a pretty solid weekend fantasy-wise, and then yesterday as well. However, I do think the NBA is going to start to get more difficult as uh, the season's starting to wind down, and some teams are playing a bunch of bench guys and star players are going to be taking games off and stuff like that. So while that's happening, it's definitely going to make fantasy a lot more crazy. And we have a lot of questionable tags today, which is really going to play into that. So let's get into that injury report here. For the 76ers, Embiid, Melton, and Covington are out. For the Knicks, OG is questionable, and Randall and Robinson are out. For the Pacers, Mathurin and McDermott are out. For the Thunder, Jalen Williams is questionable. That's the power forward Jalen Williams, their fourth best player. For the Wizards, Holmes is questionable, and then Bagley and Shamet are out. For the Grizzlies, Lamar Stevens, that is, Goodwin, and Conchar are questionable. Morant, Bain, Jackson Jr., Smart, Vince Williams, Zaire Williams, and Rose are out. For the Rockets, Sengun and Ethan are out. For the Spurs, Wimby and Vassell are questionable, and Osman is out. For the Celtics, Tatum, Porzingis, and White are questionable. Brown and Horford are doubtful. For the Jazz, Markkanen remains out. For the Timberwolves, Edwards, Gobert, Anderson, and Morris are questionable, and Towns is out. For the Clippers, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are questionable, and Westbrook are out. For the Bucks, Middleton is questionable, and for the Knicks, Murray is questionable. I will break down some of those individual potential games after I get through the main core options today, but let's go ahead and get into our top plays. We're going to start with Fred VanVleet for Houston. Now, Fred has been inconsistent lately, but he really has boosted the last 5 or 6 games. He had some stretches where he was not playing as well. His price is still pretty high, but that's partially because he's been playing good recently. And he's got a very good plus matchup here against the Spurs, so he's definitely somebody I like in play. He's not a core play today, but the way he's playing, he definitely gets some upside, especially as he's also had 3 really solid games against the Spurs this season. And this game definitely gives him a nice little boost as he's been good game to game right now. He's priced right at 8,000 about, and he needs about 39.5 fantasy points, which he's done in quite a few games in a row here. So he's definitely worth a look here. Then we'll look at Jalen Green also for the Houston Rockets. Now he has been a lot more streaky. He's got a high ceiling, and a low floor. He's clearly a GPP play today, but he has some nice upside in this matchup. The Spurs are not really playing much defense anymore, and if Wimby is out too, that would definitely boost everybody on Houston as well. Looking at Porzingis for the Boston Celtics, if he ends up playing today, it looks like Brown will likely be out, and maybe somebody else misses too. But especially with Horford out, he should get all the usage he can handle in this one. And the Jazz are pretty terrible against bigs. So I do think he has a nice upside potential here. He was very close to being a core play, but with the questionable tag, we have to kind of wait and see on him. Devin Vassell does look like he's questionable as well, at least on the latest injury report. But if he plays today, he'll be somebody to take in consideration, especially if Wemby was to miss. He would get a big boost. I really stress that I think he's only in play if Wemby plays, but or doesn't play, but because Wemby takes away a lot of usage, but because he also did very well in those last few games. His price has come up some though as a result of his good play, so do keep that in mind. But right now he's just a wait and see play. Looking at Chet Holmgren for Oklahoma City, his minutes have been up and down, and he's had a couple off games, but that's been against annoying opponents. He gets a nice favorable matchup here against the Pacers, and I look for him to bounce back and have a nice game here. He's been a little bit inconsistent, but he had a really good stretch for a while, so I think he'll probably get back into that groove, and he looks like an okay play on the slate. Denny Avdija for Wizards has actually been playing a lot of minutes lately. His minutes have increased, and his fantasy production has as well. Now he does need 35 fantasy points to pay off here, and he does have that high ceiling. He does, you do have to remember he has a lower floor, but Memphis is pretty much running without hardly any players left. So I think he's going to have some nice utility and upside on this matchup. But he is a decent play here. Derek White for Boston is also interesting today, assuming he ends up being in. It looks like he is currently questionable um, on this one, but he definitely draws some potential today, especially if Brown is out, and then potentially if other guys are out too. He was a decent play yesterday, and he's going to continue to be one until these injury situations get well, these questionable tags get resolved at the very least. Jordan Poole for Wizards, also in play today. He has some nice potential. I do think that he has boom upside here in this matchup with Memphis, considering the fact Memphis doesn't have half their team, and I look for him to have a lot of upside in this matchup. He's been playing pretty well lately, though he has had a lower floor. He's finally been playing the way we kind of expected him to this season. I do think he needs to play over 30 minutes to pay off here to be feel confident. In a couple games, he hasn't hit those minutes, but for the most part, he is, and that's going to give him that upside in this matchup. Tyus Jones, also in play for the Wizards. He has been playing pretty well lately. I do think he draws some potential here. He does have that low floor as well, but he has a high ceiling, and that's what we're going to be looking for in this matchup here. Obviously, he definitely carries that risk, but he is a GPP play today, and so I do like him from that perspective. And then we're going to look at Mike Conley, who could be a core play or could be a bench play, depending on all the other questionable tags for this team. He tends to get a lot of minutes and usage when anybody sits out for when it comes to Edwards, Anderson, and others. So I look for him to have some utility here. He's going to get the minutes. It is a tough matchup, but obviously, if the Clippers were missing Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, that would definitely open up him as well because he wouldn't have to face those guys on defense. So we'll just have to wait and see on that situation. Walker Kessler also in play for Utah, excuse me, and he definitely is going to be back. It looks like he is doing better now. He took a few games off with a foot injury, so um, hopefully he's back full strength. It looks like he's going to be back in the starting lineup. If that's the case, then he's going to be somebody that I really think is a core play, as he's a little bit underpriced on this slate right now. Obviously, that is subject to change, but I do like him a lot right at this point. Looking at Dylan Brooks here for Houston, he has also been very streaky this season. He is extremely cheap, but he obviously gets that 10 fantasy point games a lot. He does play a lot of minutes, it's just that he doesn't do a whole lot with them fantasy wise. That said, he does have random boom games, and this is kind of a good situation for him, especially with Sengun out. I think that the usage is going to get spread out between the other guys, and he might get a little bit more upside. Um, a couple other guys I would consider looking at Domantas Sabonis, Kyle Kuzma, G.G. Jackson from Memphis, Jake LaRiva, and Luke Kennard from Memphis, Amin Thompson, Jeff Green. There's a couple, this slate is pretty rough, but let's look at these injuries real quick, or these questionable tags rather, real quick, and kind of give you my thoughts on those. Looking at the New York Knicks here, OG is back. Actually, looks like he's gonna be back today. And with that, I don't think DiVincenzo and Hart are really gonna be great plays anymore. Brunson's also playing pretty well, so I do think that the Knicks are somewhat avoidable in this matchup. Looking at let's see, the Memphis Grizzlies. I mean, we have half the team. So Adama's a little bit overpriced now. G.G. Jackson's kind of in play as a contrarian play. Same with Lariva. I wouldn't play Jario or Kennard at these prices, but uh, there's not a whole lot to like from them now because they're just injury riddled and they play the guys that are left kind of limit weird minutes, so it's hard to really gauge them. I would just avoid Indiana overall. Halliburton just has not played the same as he did early in the season since Siakam has joined the team, and his price still hasn't come down a ton, even though it has come down some. I did expect it to come down a lot more and make him viable again, but it still hasn't. Oklahoma City, if Jalen Williams misses, that definitely gives a boost to Chet Holmgren, as well as a couple guys coming off the bench. But we'll have to wait and see on that injury. For the Houston, obviously with Sengun out, I was trying to look for another center to potentially move in there, but they've already boosted Landale and Jeff Green's prices, so they're pretty much avoidable today from that perspective. Looking at the Spurs, Wimby and Vassell are both questionable. If these two guys were missed, Keldon Johnson would jump into being our core play for me. And then Zach Collins would get a boost as well, and he's still a little bit underpriced if that situation were to occur. For the Celtics, obviously with Jason Tatum, Brown, Porzingis Holiday and Horford all having different tags. That can definitely play out a million different ways, but that would give Hauser and potentially Pritchard and White some potential today, as well as Tillman maybe. But we'll have to wait and see on that. Looking at the Jazz, Markin is still out, but with um, where'd he go? Oh yeah, with Kessler back, that definitely opens up a lot here, and that definitely makes us happy. Looking at the Bucks, obviously with Middleton questionable, that could play into having Beasley being available as a quality play. Same with or Jay Crowder and Connaughton, but we'll have to wait and see on Middleton. Giannis is just probable; he'll likely to play. For the Kings, Murray being questionable does help Monk and Huter, and also Harrison Barnes to some degree. I do think that there's probably more available here in Sacramento than meets the eye at this point, but it really kind of depends on if Murray was to miss or not. Looking at the Minnesota Timberwolves, obviously they got lots of questionable tags, and Towns is still out. I think Nasri gets a boost, but he's just overpriced already. Jaden McDaniels would have a little bit of a boost, as well as Mike Conley, depending on who is in and who is out. And then for the Clippers, James Harden could turn into a decent play today if Kawhi Leonard or Paul George were to miss. Obviously, with Westbrook already out, Powell also would get a boost, as well as Man. So with that said, guys, thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below, and have a nice day, guys.